Recording in progress.
Okay, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, October 7th, 2024. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the April 29th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Our second order of business is to consider the recommendations for the shelter's trap, neuter, and return program, also known or referred to as TNR. I'd first like to thank Councilwoman Marks for bringing this to Council's attention. To community members, President of the Citizens Committee for Lakewood's Animals and Shelter, commonly referred to as CLAWS, care of Lach Lasher, and Mary Puno for their further explanations and opinions on this matter at the City Council meeting on September 3rd. Thank you to our invited guests, the administration, council colleagues, and the public for your time and attention on this matter. We have the report from Ms. McDonald and the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board and their recommendations for improvement. I also understand that we have additional guests tonight to help us further understand this program and recommendations for revision. From the Lakewood Animal Shelter, the supervisor, Mr. Gary Crumley, is here, and on the phone, Dana Marie Pinella, the attorney working with CLAWS and a specialist on animal law in Ohio. Thank you both for joining us. Ms. Pinella, can you hear me? Going in and out. Try it one more time. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. We can hear you now. Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Crumley, let's start with you and an explanation of the program at the shelter and your thoughts on this matter. Thank you.
When I first started, there was a conversation that needed to be had, I guess, for trying to start some sort of TNR program in the city. So we did come up with a solution to get one going. I definitely see the need for a TNR concept in the city and so forth. I think what we have designed worked fine. It didn't overwhelm the shelter. I did look at their suggestions. I agree with some and I don't agree with others. One thing I'm concerned about is where they're wanting to make this community caregiver. And at least the way I'm interpreting some of this language is I'm afraid that it would alleviate us to be able to enact enforcement if needed. And the reason I started thinking this way is we had a street in our city that we had one house that became a major problem for this street. And estimated they had probably over 100 cats. I know that because of this, neighbors started to trap cats to bring to us. And I know that we had to, unfortunately, euthanize at least 44 feral cats from that street. I know the resident got rid of roughly 40 plus cats on their own by trying to reach out with some other organizations and so forth. We did have one cat that was able to be adopted out of one that we received. Several were sick, had ringworm and upper respiratory infections and other things that is a concern for neighbors and so forth. And I'm just afraid that if we don't have some sort of teeth in our ordinance to be able to either put a limit on how many cats can be in a community, or some sort of enforcement action that can be dealt with when we have a situation that's getting out of control, because it became almost a safety environmental issue for the neighbors, because the cats were, spraying, the male cats, they were using the flower beds for litter boxes, and they had been complaining that they haven't been able to use their front or backyards for a long period of time because of this. But I do understand why there needs to be a TNR, so we can eliminate and maybe prevent this from ever happening before it gets to 100. But again, it takes a responsible pet owner to help make that happen, or organizations like them that would help, with the neighborhood, or with the resident themselves. 3 people, from what I can remember, had signed up to do the TNRs in the city when we enacted this stuff, and they're the ones that did most of the TNR. So that, I think, is one of the reasons as well that the shelter wasn't overwhelmed at all. One of my fears is if everybody can do it, and they think that they're going to be bringing these cats or kittens to the shelter, then that could definitely overwhelm us if everybody could do it, and it could be a carte blanche type of thing. So that's what I would be concerned about.
Thank you very much. Questions? Mr. Baker?
Yes, and thank you for being here. Could you explain, I think I have some familiarity with the current pilot of the program, but could you just explain, because you talked about how we have some TNR, but this would be a little bit more. Can you just lay the groundwork for what we currently have and what's currently approved, and kind of the scale and the outline of it?
Yeah, I know with what we have right now is they have to attend some sort of training. It can be online, to be able to, and this was on their recommendation, some sort of TNR type of program.
And who is they? I'm sorry.
It was LaSwab and Claus when we were talking about this. Might not have been Claus, but I know LaSwab when we were talking about it. And one of the reasons I think they wanted that is they didn't want somebody to have no experience or knowledge of a TNR. Because when you trap a feral cat, they can be very scared and so forth in the trap. So just a simple thing of knowing that you should cover the trap once you have them to help keep them calm. General public might not know that without actually going or sitting in on one of these training sessions. There was a brief application thing that they had to fill out. They have to get a permission from the property owner if they're not the owner, if they're assisting the owner. So they have to have approval from them to be on their property to do the TNR. I have to know who's doing the TNR, and then once I have that, and I know they already applied and were approved to TNR, the process is fairly easy. All they have to do is, email me that this is where they're going to be. Here's the form. They can include it in an attachment, and they know that even if I don't get that email, let's say somebody contacts them after we're closed, and if it's somebody that's already approved, I spoke to them. I said, look, you're approved. If you got the paperwork that's going to be okay, email it to me. I'll see it first thing in the morning. I'll sign it, get it back to you. So as far as I know, there's been no delays or anything like that. And I even told them if you had to catch one before I got that back to you, I understand, because you might have an appointment. You don't want to let that cat go, because once they are released from a trap, the chances of maybe catching them again are very slim. So I did work with them on that as well. I said, as long as you give me that information, we'll be good. And so far, it's worked out.
And so is this like a written or more of an informal policy that?
It was a, like a temporary written thing that the city had come up with and agreed upon to let them start doing it because we were getting into mating season, so we were trying to prevent a lot of more abundance of population of kittens.
And do we know how many cats have gone through the current 3 caregiver?
No, I'm not sure if they've given me those numbers yet. They're supposed to be keeping track and getting them to me. I don't know if that was at the end of the TNR process, but hopefully they have those numbers for you.
And so explain it, so a person who's approved, who's gone through some training, so they're, they have some ability and training to do this. They trap a cat, and then they email you a form, and then the animal shelter neuters them and releases them. Just the process would be helpful.
Gotcha, okay. So if they want to be able to TNR, right now, they have to be able to prove that they had some sort of training, so they supply a certificate, they fill out the application that they can get online. Once that's reviewed and that they submitted that, then if they want to, let's say you're having a feral cat problem at your place, they would have to talk to you, have you sign this form saying it's okay for them to be on your property. They set the trap, they have the appointment for the spay or neuter. So when they catch the trap, they set the trap, they monitor it. Once the cat is caught, then it's up to them to take it to the spay and neuter. They observe the cat until the required amount of time that they're told by the veterinarian that performed it. And then they're the ones that take it back to the location of where it was trapped and release it.
And so then all of this is done, the city gets a form, but La Swab or Claus is providing all the funding to do this pilot?
Yes,
that we-
or the homeowner could
Or the homeowner.
provide it, but yes, on that aspect, it's not costing the city anything for the actual TNR. Now, the only where that could involve money for the city is if they can't catch something that they think is sick, that maybe need to be to the point where it would need to be euthanized. They can bring it to us so we can do that. Or if there's kittens, if they want us to be able to take the kittens. And again, if we have a few people, I don't think it's a problem with us taking the kittens, but if this is gonna be a carte blanche where anybody in the city, then I almost feel that maybe those kittens should be TNR'd as well and just released back to that area, so the shelter doesn't get overwhelmed. But again, only 3 people have done it. They've helped out other residents, and me personally, I didn't think there was any issues with the process, the way we have it set up right now.
What I'm wondering if we can't codify some part of that, right? If we found it to be working, I'd be interested in the numbers as well. If you or La Swab or Claus, how many cats have gone through the program, how long it's been in place, I think would be really helpful for us to kind of figure out a good policy going forward.
I would assume a couple of them are gonna talk tonight, and hopefully they got those numbers to give you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Marks?
Thank you. So, Gary, as I understand it, you feel that the program that we have right now is working adequately, and your concern is that with just a random number of people who could do this would overwhelm the shelter if they're bringing cats to you. Is that correct?
Correct. I think if anybody can do it, I think we can get overwhelmed very easily.
So right now, if a cat is trapped and it's going to be taken to be spayed or neutered, who takes them? Is it the person who traps them? Takes them?
Yes. The
And then
city, sorry to interrupt, the city is hands-off on that aspect.
Okay.
So once they get approved for this, they deal with everything. They approach the homeowners, they get the homeowners to agree or to sign the form to work with them. They're the ones that make the appointment for the TNR. Either themselves or somebody in their organization then transports them to and from the veterinarian clinic that they have that appointment scheduled. And then once the cat can be released medically, then they take it back to, they're supposed to be taking it back, and I'm assuming they are, to that place that they were trapped and release them there.
Right.
And the benefit of it is it's supposed to help that cat population from growing.
Right.
Because now they're spayed and neutered.
Right. I was at one of those meetings where that was discussed by our cat controller from Cleveland. So that it's important to take the cats back to where they were trapped because they'll stay in the neighborhood and there will not be stray cats that enter to make up the difference for that cat that might be missing. So, and right now there's a controlled number of people who can trap these cats. And they can trap it on somebody else's property, but the way this, I believe, is written, you have to trap it on your own property. So you can trap, according to this written communication, anyone can trap a cat on their own property, but they can't trap it on somebody else's property. The way that we're currently working the TNR program is that we have a controlled group of people who have been certified to trap these animals. So it's not just an inordinate number of people, correct?
Correct. I don't know if we ever put a number. I would have to look back if there was a number on how many people that could sign up, but we didn't have that many that actually signed up for it.
I think I remember being at one of the meetings where we talked about a number and then maybe not a number, and I don't know where it actually ended up. But your feeling is that you don't want to just have anybody be able to track these cats because it could become a burden to the shelter, because normally they're not brought to the shelter, correct?
Correct. The actual adult cats isn't going to be the issue because they're going to TNR them or release them back there. It's when there's kittens that are already involved. So if they trap a nursing mom, if there's 5 or 6 kittens that now they want to bring to the shelter because they're not feral yet, we can probably manage with just a small number of people doing it. But if everybody in the city can do it, just imagine if 12 people are bringing me 6 kittens. I wouldn't be able to take in any other strays. That would overwhelm us.
Right, I can understand that. So a question I have, if you have a female cat that is nursing, and would she automatically take her kittens into the trap with her?
No. So I know on that, they try to do an expedited on nursing moms to get them spayed and then back as quickly as they can so she can continue to nurse.
So it wouldn't be that the kittens would come along with the mother cat necessarily?
Not necessarily, but I mean, we have had traps with more than one animal in it, so that could be a possibility.
Mm-hmm. I understand what your concern is, and I'm sure that our professional group that is here to talk about this will help offer some clarification as well to this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all you do to take care of all the animals in the city, too.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I'd like to open the floor up to any community members at this time that would like to express any concerns or clarifying points. Come on up. If you could state your name and address for the record, that's okay. And, yep, you got it. Oh, press it one more time. Press it until that little green light comes on there. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Mary Puno, 12223 Madison, Lakewood. I assume that the end goal, and I hope I'm right, is to get all at-large pets off the streets. That ultimately there should perhaps be an increase in, and I'm suggesting that there should have to be an increase in the fine for people who allow their pets to roam free. My real fear is the concept of indoor-outdoor cats seem prevalent, and some people seem to feel entitled to not care for their pets in a manner safe for both their pet and for their neighbors. Additionally, some people allow their dogs to roam and pose a similar problem as cats. Referring to when I spoke before, I would like to reiterate the need for the health and safety of residents and the need for testing and treating sick stray cats. All cats should be tested and treated for rabies, toxoplasmosis, and parasites so as not to harm residents and their children who play outdoors and for people who grow food. I'm assuming this is not being paid for with tax dollars. There should be an estimate as to the number of volunteers needed to accomplish this program and an advanced decision as to what happens if the number of volunteers needed falls below that minimum. You know, life gets in the way, people move, you know, want to make sure that there's still enough volunteers and that it just doesn't go by the wayside. I'd also like to reiterate the need for establishing metrics and what is deemed a success of the program, what is deemed a failure of the program, as well as estimates to accomplish this, time estimates to accomplishment. And there also needs to be a plan should the program fail. As a property owner and a pet owner, we've invested in fencing in and gating our property so our dogs are less likely to run loose. I'm disappointed that I can no longer allow my current dog to roam the yard unattended because cats leave feces in our yards. Moreover, I can no longer garden organically because I've been forced to spray for fleas. That's kind of it. Hopefully I stayed way under time.
Yeah, you're good. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Anyone else from the community? Ms. Lasher?
Good evening, Chairperson Strebig, members of the Public Safety Committee, and the administration. I'm Kara Black-Lasher, President of CCLAS, Citizens Committee for Lakewood's Animals and Shelter, also known as CLAWS. Thank you again for the opportunity to give a quick background. Aaron McDonald and Liz Schwab worked with our new shelter supervisor, Gary Carmley, and put a significant amount of time and research and effort on the issue of community cats in Lakewood, and I applaud their efforts and fully support these recommendations. I'd like to give a brief overview on a couple of terms that often our folks use interchangeably, and they are important for this discussion here. If you see a cat roaming outside, there's three points. Is this someone's own pet cat that they let roam indoors and outdoors? Note that this is already illegal in Lakewood under the 505 code, animals running at large. And there were no updates or in this recommendation to change that. This is already illegal. Number two, is this someone's pet cat that is lost? Or is this a pet cat that was dumped outside and abandoned? That's not, we typically, these are friendly cats that can be handled, picked up and brought to the shelter for their owners to reclaim or put up for adoption. These are usually referred to as stray cats. And then there's number three. Is this cat born outside and has lived its entire life on the street, or was it dumped and abandoned so long ago that is now accustomed to living on the street and can no longer live as an inside pet cat? These cats are unowned, not socialized to humans, and cannot typically be handled, and are usually referred to as feral cats. Please note that these three categories can be viewed on a spectrum, and cats roaming outside won't neatly fit into one category or another. The term community cat is an all-encompassing term referring to stray and feral cats who live outdoors in virtually every landscape on every continent, predominantly where people live. Trap, neuter, return, or TNRing is aimed at the feral end of that spectrum, and it's the only humane, effective approach to community cat population. As stated in the LaSwab recommendation report, TNR is endorsed by nationally recognized and respected organizations such as the Humane Society of the United States and the National Animal Control Association, to name just a couple. The recommendations in this ordinance update are intended simply to clarify what is specifically legal and illegal in our city by our citizens who are just attempting to assist Lakewood's community cat population, and using TNR and specifically defining the TNR process. As the current ordinances were vague and causing issues with citizens just trying to help a clear problem we have in our city, we hope that this ordinance update will be properly addressed now and TNR can plainly be allowed in our city to help curb this cat population. And I understand Officer Crumley's concern about overwhelming the shelter. However, if in trapping a TNR, if you're TNRing a feral cat and you trap a stray cat, that's somebody's outdoor cat that got loose or lost. It's a friendly cat that should be allowed to come to the shelter for reclaiming or adopting out. I understand he's concerned about being overwhelmed, but hopefully that won't happen. But again, if there's kittens on the street or there's a stray cat on the street, that's what we want the animal shelter for, to scoop them up and take them to the animal shelter for the animal control officers to deal with, to adopt them out or to use a foster care situation. We don't want those cats on the street. We want them to come to the shelter and be adopted out if they are friendly cats, or TNR'd if they are not, if they are the feral cat. TNR will fix them, spay and neuter them, and to Ms. Piunu, I'm sorry if I'm massacring your name, she's asking for testing for rabies. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dana, who's our animal attorney, but the test for rabies, you have to cut the animal's head off to determine if they have rabies. And under TNR, we give them the vaccinations. We fix and spay them, but we also give them an FERCP, which is feline. It's for rhinoviruses, calicium, pan-luke, all the basic diseases, plus a rabies shot, and then put them back on the street. So that's going to curb your vaccination. And some of the other testing that she's asking for, toxoplasmosis, that's in the environment all over the place, and testing for them. Again, there's no funding. We're not asking for funding from the city. Citizens are doing this on their own. Community rescues are doing this on their own. And we're only asking for the city to kind of get out of the way and let citizens do it. If they see a community cat or a feral cat in their yard, to be able to TNR it on their own, at their own expense, and have the compassion for those animals that they see in their yard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Piniella, we're going to let you jump in at this point and give us an overview of the current ordinances that I believe that you've looked at and where they're problematic for you, and anything else that you want to add to this conversation.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dana Piniella. I work with Holland and Meerden out of Medina County. We practice animal law full-time, which includes not only civil animal law, but we do animal cruelty prosecutions as well throughout Ohio, and at this point, quite frankly, nationwide. TNR is always a hot topic, and Kara summed it up pretty nicely. What you have here are a lot of good Samaritans who are taking time and money out of their own lives and pockets to help the city control an issue. And the less red tape you have to let those good Samaritans do this, the better. We've seen these programs be effective all over the United States and the world. We know that in Europe, for example, Rome has a very large population of community cats. They're treasured, they're well treated, they're fixed, they're not producing more. It's working fantastically. We need to get there. I believe the ordinance that's before you is well written. I think it's complete, and I think it addresses all of the issues. There are two ways to handle this. Either you have no ordinances that restrict TNR at all, but the problem with that in Lakewood is that you have ordinances currently that restrict TNR, so those would have to be stricken, or you enact a TNR-friendly ordinance, which is what you have before you. I hear the concerns of your shelter staff about cats, large population of cats. I did take a look at the rest of your animal codes. I believe there is room there to modify those to address situations like that, including animal neglect, abandonment, and cruelty. Those codes could use some updating to help assist with those situations. When you get up to a population of that many cats, it's not really a community cat caregiver anymore. In fact, I would be surprised if the woman identified herself that way, because it's just straight hoarding. the cats were probably reproducing. This ordinance requires that the cats be fixed in order to qualify as a community cat caregiver. So it does address all of those concerns. I did hear concerns about certain disease testing. Ms. Lasher is correct that the only way to test for rabies is to physically decapitate the animal. Rabies in cats and dogs is not common in the United States, especially in Ohio. But the bottom line is these are cats who otherwise would never be vaccinated but for TNR. There are all kinds of wild animals in our communities that carry disease who are never going to be vaccinated. So the least likely carrier is certainly a cat who has gone through this process. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about TNR. I've worked on a number of these ordinances across the country. I think they are the best solution, the most humane and effective approach to dealing with community cats.
Thank you very much. I do have one question off the bat for you. Were you the one that was able to look at the ordinances that we have and make recommendations?
Yes, I did look at your ordinances. I have not made recommendations at this point. I certainly could if that's something you'd like.
Okay. Ms. Lasher, could you tell me, I see in the report that there's some verbiage that's been crossed out and some that's red highlighted. Was that done through your committee?
Yeah, CCLAS worked with Ms. Pinella to work on that.
Okay.
With the red and the blue was, yeah, I'm sorry about the color coding. Some of the blue was worked with LaSwab and the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board, and updating some of that since we had, we were putting forth some ordinance recommendations. I think Officer Crumley had some input, and the LaSwab board also had some input on those. And while we were putting forth all of these ordinance recommendations, there were multiple input things. So I think we wanted to highlight some. I think the blue things were non-attorney recommended.
Okay, so a team approach.
A team
That's
approach, yes,
very good.
the camel
Okay.
approach.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Colleagues, any questions for anyone at this point? Thank you. Mr. Vargo, have you had a chance to look at this yet? Have you looked at these recommendations for changes to these ordinances, codes?
I have not, Councilperson.
Okay.
Certainly willing to do so.
Thank you. I think that was probably the next best step, since we've heard from everyone. Or, I'm sorry, did you want to speak? Please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. My name is Megan Galeta. My address is 1364 West 114th Street in Cleveland. I have a few prepared remarks that I would like to give, and then I also was making notes as others were speaking, and I can give you some data points from Clause, what we've been able to do so far this year as well. So good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Again, my name is Megan Galeta, and I am the Community Cats Coordinator for the Citizens Committee for Lakewood's Animals and Shelter, which we abbreviate CCLAS or CLAWS. I educate Lakewood residents about community cats and trap, neuter, return, and I trap for residents who are unable to do it themselves. I have been a TNR practitioner for about 8 years and have TNR'd and rescued hundreds of cats in Cleveland and surrounding cities, including Lakewood. I have taken dozens of classes and seminars to learn about TNR best practices and cat behavior. I am certified in TNR from Neighborhood Cats in New York City, which is one of the first TNR programs in the country. I wish all cats could have a loving indoor home. But the reality is there just aren't enough homes for all of the cats in Lakewood and all the other communities. We have a saying in TNR and Rescue: we can't adopt our way out of this crisis. Knowing that, what is the solution to the community cat problem? It is not to trap and euthanize them. Animal control officers did that for decades, and that was just standard procedure. This is not a comment against animal control officers. They did that for decades, and it does not work. Unfixed cats left behind will quickly reproduce until they reach the carrying capacity of the area. Carrying capacity is the number of animals an area can support with the food, shelter, and other resources available. Carrying capacity applies to outdoor animals, from raccoons and deer to community cats. In addition, trapping and euthanizing creates a vacuum in the cat's territory. Food, shelter, and other resources remain. So kittens are born and more cats move in to fill that vacuum. This is called the vacuum effect. If trapping and euthanizing doesn't work, what does? Trap, neuter, return is the solution. It is the humane way to stop community cats from multiplying. It stops behaviors like mating, fighting among males, and spraying to mark territory. In TNR, cats are trapped, vaccinated, and then spayed or neutered. They are returned to their home territory where citizens care for them. These cats are not abandoned. They live out their lives in their territory and prevent new and often unfixed cats from moving in. TNR stabilizes the population. Over time, the colony size decreases as the cats live out their lives and then eventually die. I personally have TNR'd many cats that the Cleveland APL estimated based on teeth and body condition to be at least 10 years old. So when people say that cats living outside will only live a year or two and die a horrible death, it is not proven. It is not a proven fact. TNR is not quick, but it does work. Research studies published in peer-reviewed journals document the success of TNR programs. Just as important, the National Animal Care and Control Association, the Professional Society for Animal Control Officers, now supports TNR instead of trap and euthanize as the way to address community cat populations. The revised TNR ordinance will allow me and other TNR practitioners to work with residents to tackle the community cat problem in Lakewood. We will hold public trainings where residents can learn best practices for TNR and colony caretaking. Since spring, we have worked under the TNR policies and procedures LaSwab, Claus, and Lakewood Animal Control Officer, Mr. Crumley, developed so that we could TNR and prevent as many litters as possible. It was a cumbersome process. The revised ordinance will remove barriers those policies and procedures made for residents. And I do want to say as an aside that it was cumbersome on my end to work with people and have to get a form filled out and get it to Gary. It was not in any way that it was cumbersome working with Gary. Gary did turn around the forms very quickly and worked with me if I had to trap, if there was a cat that I needed to get because I had an appointment, like he said. So the revised ordinance will remove barriers those policies and procedures made for residents. It will make TNR the preferred way for Lakewood to deal with community cats and empower residents to practice TNR and address the community cat problem. I end with a saying from Brian Cordes of Neighborhood Cats in New York. Brian says, and I quote, "You can't legislate compassion." He knows that residents will feed community cats even with an ordinance against it because they are compassionate. They don't want to see cats starving. Let's recognize their compassion and educate them so they can practice TNR and stabilize and decrease Lakewood's community cat population. It will not cost the city anything in funding or other resources, and Lakewood's ordinance will reflect best practices for addressing community cat populations. I did say thank you for your time. I am happy to address any questions you may have about TNR, but I'm going to go quickly to make a couple other points. We started trapping during the spring. As I said, am certified and trained, so I was able to do the application, and Gary gave me permission to trap within the city. I did have a family situation that took me out of the ability to do that for a number of months. So these data aren't what I would have hoped that they would be. But we have TNR'd, so trapped, neutered, and returned 15 cats. We had to euthanize one cat because based on his condition and the vet's recommendation at the APL, that was the humane thing to do for him. We surrendered one cat. We have 5 kittens in foster through me who are going to go to an outside rescue. We have 2 adults in foster who will go to an outside rescue. We have 1 cat that when I tested her in the trap, it was very clear that she was a former house cat. She was not spayed, she was not microchipped, and her amazing caregivers brought her in, and they are introducing her to their own cat family. So that's a successful adoption. And we also had the one surrender was a kitten that I took to the shelter on behalf of a resident who didn't have a car. And there was another resident who I worked with who fostered a litter on her own, and those went to an outside rescue, and she's now fostering a second litter that will go to an outside rescue. So that is 24 in total right now that I can count, not including the kittens that will go to outside rescue. And that is very common in TNR, to work with rescues in the area to get the cats taken in that way. And it is very much a good way to do it so as to not overwhelm the shelter, which does have limited cage space and does have a limited foster program. A couple more points I just wanted to make briefly. Many other people in Lakewood are trapping already and are doing TNR. There are residents who are trapping specifically so that the cats that come on their property will be euthanized. They know that is what is going to happen. So when they do that, they're contributing to the vacuum effect. Kittens don't contribute in the same way to the vacuum effect because they're so tiny and they're just being introduced to the colony at that time. Just briefly too, there is the Cleveland APL and PetFix in Euclid are referred to as high volume spay and neuter clinics. And there are no high volume spay neuter clinics that test for toxoplasmosis or rabies, obviously, because of the test that has to be done. In regards to fleas and parasites, I would not be an honest person if I didn't say that outdoor community cats do often have fleas and other parasites. However, so do mice and rats, raccoons, possums, birds, and skunks. It's in those parasites are already in the environment. To use that as a way to move us away from TNR is not going to help the community cat situation, and it's kind of disingenuous because those things are already out in the environment already. When we do TNR, we flea treat the cat, and we also give a treatment called praziquantel for tapeworm. If you've had cats or dogs, you know that flea treatment needs to be an ongoing thing. So I'm not saying that these TNR cats do not get fleas again. We do that to give them a bit of a reprieve from their body and to kind of help control it in the environment as well. So those were the couple of other things that I had written down to mention. I am very happy to take any questions you have about the process of TNR, about any of the terms that I've used, about what it's been like to TNR under the current policies and procedures that we've been using.
Colleagues, any questions? Ms. Keppel.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, everyone. I was just reading through, so can I repeat to you what I think the current process is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I spoke with Officer Crumley recently too, so, which I appreciate you taking the time with that too. We had some rampant incorrect rumors going around the community that I wanted to get to the bottom of, so I appreciate both of your time. Okay, so currently, if there's a cat on my property and I trap it, I'm allowed to do that, right? Or do I have to go through a TNR perm? I can just trap a cat that's on my property.
Right now, as the policies and procedures were developed, you need to do an application, which you send to Mr. Crumley, and he will okay that. And you would need to be certified to have had some kind of training, or you could work with somebody who is already certified, which would be me.
Okay.
But I will say that that is a new process, and it was not advertised in any way. It was a partnership to let us be able to get a jump on kitten season. So as Mr. Crumley said, there's 3 of us who did it. There's lots of other people TNRing who didn't do it.
Okay. And Officer Crumley, you look like you have something you want to add.
Yeah, if you're just talking about trapping a cat to bring to the shelter, no, you do not have to do that training or whatever. You can set the trap, catch that cat, either ask us to pick it up or bring it to us.
Okay.
TNR, doing that trap, neuter, and release, or return, however they want to define the last R, is where you need to get that training, fill out the application, and get the permission from the resident to be able to do it.
So if okay, and I might be getting this wrong, so that's why I'm repeating this, my understanding. So right now, the way the law is written, I could trap a cat on my property, and if it's feral and I bring it to you, it's going to be euthanized unless I reach out to a TNR program or I work with a TNR person. No, you're shaking your head no. Okay, tell me where I'm wrong.
Right now, a feral cat taken to the shelter will be euthanized. And the reason for that is there's no place for that cat to go.
Right.
It's
okay.
not adoptable.
We talked about that. Yeah.
The best place for it, or I should say the most humane way to handle that, is to spay and neuter and vaccinate that cat and let it go back to the community where there are caregivers taking care of it.
Okay. And so I would have to, but I believe Officer Crumlin, I think you can only release it on your own property or property where someone gives you permission, right? So like I couldn't just trap a cat in the Walmart parking lot and take it back there. Well, not that we have a Walmart, but you know what I mean? Like I can't just go onto somebody's property without permission, trap a cat, TNR it, and put it back there without that property owner's permission. Is that accurate?
As the current policies and procedures are written, and it is a best practice. I mentioned best practices a number of times, and maybe want to say a little bit about that. Neighborhood Cats in New York and another group called Alley Cat Allies, which is located in Washington, D.C., they promulgate standards and best practices for how to TNR. And the very first thing that they say is TNR is trap, neuter, return, not trap, neuter, release, which was an old turn of phrase. And the reason it's changed to return is because you're returning it exactly where it was trapped. It has its territory there. It knows the food resources, shelter resources, streets to stay away from, So that's the return part, and that's why somebody who knows TNR would not take it to Target or any other place. That is one of the areas where education will be key, as I would hope we will be able to do under the new ordinance. Under the new ordinance, this can come out more into the open. Right now, it is people who are feeding cats are doing so secretly because of the way the current ordinance is written. The new ordinance will let them become community cat caregivers, and there's no cost involved in that. Then they could attend one of the educational seminars that we would do to learn how to do that well and how to TNR. And there are also other online ones that they could do too.
If I can just ask.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so currently, if I trap a cat on my property and I take it to the shelter and it's determined to be a feral cat, it would, by law, have to be euthanized because unless I was okay with it coming back on my property, right? Because we can't just dump it somewhere else. We can't take it to the metro parks and dump it. So that if it was determined to be feral. Yeah, we certainly can't do that. Yeah, this is Metro Parks lawyer sitting next to me, but like that same thing happens with raccoons and possums or whatever. If you trap something and you take it and it's wild, it can't, and I don't want it back on my property. But now with this, so if I wanted to, let's say I did that after this is passed, and I take this feral cat, I don't want to, I'm like, oh, okay. Take it in, we determine it's feral, and then I get educated about TNR when I take it to the shelter, and I say, oh, that sounds cool. Would I be able to participate in that, or I would have had to have worked with a TNR person before, or how would that work?
That is a piece that would need to be decided. Right now, the end is if they take a feral cat, it's euthanized. There is no outcome other than that. You have to have appointments for the Cleveland APL or Pet Fix in order to get them spayed or neutered. And did you say something? Oh, yes. So that is, I'm sorry, Dana, did you want to say something? Oh, so that is the only outcome right now. It is the hope in this ordinance that it would empower residents to be able to do that. There is the question, you raise a good point of what's going to happen when somebody brings a feral cat to the shelter. And that's a piece to be worked out. If I could give you my version that I would like, the cat could be walked into Pet Fix Monday through Thursday. One cat can be walked in per person, and it could get spayed and neutered at the owner's or at the trapper's expense and then returned. So that is a way to do it without appointments. I would like to see, frankly, the shelter not euthanize any more feral cats. These cats have done nothing wrong. It is human irresponsibility that has caused them to be out in the community. That is how most TNR people see things. It may not be how all residents see things, but that would be the piece where TNR would be the preferred way to handle cats in the future.
Okay. And then just to clarify, I heard you say it's not really just TNR, it's actually trap, neuter / spay, vaccinate, and then return. Is that accurate?
Yes. So we have used nomenclature is changing and evolving. We have used TNR, which is the more common term, trap, neuter, return. There is also the term right now TNVR, which is trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. And then there's also TNVRM, which is trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, manage. So that would be, and that is an important piece, whether it is understood by people who do TNR that you're not just dropping a cat off on somebody's property and, good luck to you and that cat. I have people who I've been working with for 8 years and stay in contact with them. If another cat shows up, if a cat is injured, we can trap then and take them to the vet, take them to the APL. So that management piece is underlying TNR. We just went with the more simple and more common term.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions from the administration? Mr. Crumley? Anyone in the public? Yes. Yes.
Just very quickly, I see nothing about, or I've heard nothing about bringing the cat population down. Like, we're just gonna allow this to go. But the other things are toxoplasmosis, primary spreader is cats. And then I have an anecdotal story. I lived in Geauga County for 24 years. My dogs had an acre of land to roam. Never had problems with parasites. We moved to the city. Within weeks, our dogs were infested with fleas. We had to have our house bombed, just all sorts of treatment, and, you know, as you know. When I mentioned it to my doctor, who actually, or the vet rather, who grew up in Geauga County, also said, well, you're in the city now. So my point is it's not the raccoons and the skunks and the foxes and everything else, because I had more than that in my yard. It's clearly the cats.
Thank you.
And if I could say a little bit more about that.
You're going to have like 30 seconds because
Okay.
we're going to have to wrap this up.
It is standard veterinary care to flea and parasite treat for parasites cats and dogs. That is the gold standard of care. So if people are being responsible pet owners and flea treating their animals, and for dogs as well, heartworm, if they were doing that, then a few cats in their yard wouldn't make the difference that it would if they're not flea treating their animals. And also, toxoplasmosis is also, you can get that from undercooked meat. And white-tailed deer, which there are some deer in Lakewood, they carry fleas and toxoplasmosis. And just the very last point, the whole point of TNR is to trap the cats and get them fixed so they stop reproducing. The population, initially it may seem like there are even more cats, but that's because you're finding out about the cats. Cats that are under the radar right now. There is no census of cats in Lakewood.
Okay.
And there's no resources to do that.
Very
so
good.
the end goal is to stabilize the population and decrease it over time.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
all
so
of that
much.
information. That was very helpful.
Thank you so much for your attention.
Any other questions? I think since we've heard from the public and all the parties concerned, I'd like to make a motion for the Law Department to review these suggestions and return with an updated version of these ordinances to review at a future meeting.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? I'm sorry, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I just, I think it would be ripe for, you know, because this right now is a communication. If we actually want to consider implementing this, it needs to be an ordinance. Sounds like there's some common ground that Officer Crumley has. It'd be nice to work that out, have some version ready that council could work with. Maybe perhaps what Officer Crumley is okay with, and then we can work with LaSwab and CCLSA or LAS to, you know, come up with policy. So I think that would be the preferred approach, and I think your motion would accomplish that, so.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. If there aren't any other questions or concerns, I'd like to call this meeting adjourned.
All right, we will, we got 1 minute here, but I feel like we would like 1 minute and then we'll start committee of the whole. Ernie, are you, because we're going to need you. Okay. All right, we'll just go ahead with committee of the whole then. We're right at 1 minute early, but I think that's all right. So then we'll break between the committee of the whole and full meeting. So I'll call committee of the whole to order. First, a move to approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2024 Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. So the only thing on the agenda for Committee of the Whole is Resolution 2024-55. And Director Varga, I think we probably just need to take this whole thing in executive session. Is that appropriate?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay. So pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 12122G, I'll make a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I think we need a roll. So I'll do it. Marks? Keppel, yes. Baker?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Strebig?
Yes.
And that motion passes. So we'll head into executive session. All right, I will first move to exit executive session.
Second. Second, sorry.
Motion's been made and seconded. I think we need a roll to come out. Is that right? Yes, okay. Evans?
Yes.
Marks? Capel, yes. Baker?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Trubig?
Yes.
All right, and now I will move to, oh yeah, we're not actually in full committee, right? Or in full session. I'll move to refer Resolution 2024-55 favorably out of committee to full council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes. And no further committee business. We are adjourned. We'll start full council at 7:30 on the dot.
A lot of pressure on yourself.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Ward 1 had some issues too. Yeah. My buddy in Arlington. No, but
All right, we'll call the October 7th meeting of council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence, and I'll just raise up, there was an incident earlier today, so all those affected by that incident, including the victim of gun violence and our safety forces who bravely responded to it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Keppel.
Here.
Marks.
Here.
Rader. Absent. Strebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 16th, 2024.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Without objection, I'll move items 8 and 10 to the top.
Item 8, Resolution 2024-57, a resolution to recognize and celebrate the life, legacy, and contributions of Lakewood resident and social justice activist Patricia Wellborn.
Councilwoman Strebig.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, tonight we recognize and honor Patricia Wellborn for a lifetime of achievement as a social justice advocate, minister, spiritual counselor, Reiki master, dancer, teacher, writer, poet, vocalist, drummer, artist, and more. I met Patricia in November of 2022 when she taught a community class to discuss racism, allyship, and the parts we all play. She talked about the common DNA that we all share and the 400-year-old commercial to convince us that white people deserve more. In the mid-1600s, there were no white people, just people from different countries in Europe. And then, like everything else, money and power began to take control. Her insight, explanations, and the care she showed us all are a master's class in understanding where our country has been, where we are today, and how we can do better. I was also privileged to participate in a drum circle that she led at the Barton Center one evening with a group of her friends and community members. She carefully led us with the beat and encouraged others to join with their own rhythms and instruments until we had a full ensemble grooving to the beats and sounds. Her incredible talents and ability to share unconditionally is the model we should all follow and aspire to achieve. Please join me as I join the Lakewood Black Caucus in celebrating a life well lived. Thank you. And President Keppel, I would ask for a full reading of this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Clerk Bob?
Yes, Resolution 2024-57, a resolution to recognize and celebrate the life, legacy, and contributions of Lakewood resident and social justice activist Patricia Wellborn. Whereas a native daughter of Northeast Ohio, Patricia Wellborn was born March 17, 1950 in Cleveland, Ohio. And whereas Ms. Wellborn overcame the racism and sexism ubiquitous of her generation to become one of a minority of college-educated black women, earning a full scholarship and a bachelor's degree from John Carroll University in 1977. And whereas after spending several decades outside of Ohio pursuing spiritual practices, spiritual leadership, and the healing arts, Ms. Wellborn felt called to return to Northeast Ohio to enjoy her golden years among family. And whereas harnessing her variety of skills and knowledge as a communicator, teacher, and healer, Ms. Wellborn focused the last chapter of her life on the pursuit of social justice activism to help Black people navigate the challenges of racism and white supremacy. And whereas in 2021, in cooperation with like-minded friends and neighbors, Ms. Wellborn founded the Lakewood Black Caucus, a grassroots organization dedicated to uplifting the Black community and educating and nurturing young Black leadership in Lakewood. And whereas the Lakewood Black Caucus filled an important need in the Lakewood community for Black folks to come together in a safe space, educate the community in allyship, and celebrate Black culture. And whereas Ms. Wellborn's work establishing the Lakewood Black Caucus leaves behind an important legacy for her friends and community to build upon in the years ahead. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council and mayor hereby recognize and celebrate the life, legacy, and contributions of Patricia Welburn.
Thank you. I'll first move to receive and file the communication from Councilwoman Strubig.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. I'll now move to adopt Resolution 2024-57.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion from council members. Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. Sorry for my voice, everybody. Councilwoman Strubig, thanks for bringing this forward tonight. Patricia has been a warm, welcoming, and consistent leader whom I've also gotten to know and benefit from learning and attending not only some classes, but some celebrations. And so that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of open-heartedness, and I appreciate it, and my own family's benefited from it, so it's very appropriate that we're celebrating her service tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? Councilwoman Marks.
Bringing this resolution forward. I've been fortunate to also attend some of the classes Mrs. Welburn had given, and I was duly impressed with how much I didn't know about the history of Black Americans. So it was very enriching, and you are such an asset for us to have here in Lakewood. I appreciate all that you have to offer and your artistic abilities. So thank you very much for contributing to all of us here in Lakewood.
Councilman Evans.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your life, your skills, considerable talents and abilities, and your love with Lakewood. You're an inspiration to all of us, so thank you so much. And again, thank you, Councilman Strubig.
All right. Any further comment? All right. We do have some folks signed in to speak on this. So when I call your name, if you want to come up to the microphone, I see that the mic is already on, so you don't need to push the button. You'll just say your name and if you feel comfortable, your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. So up first is Shirley Nelson.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Lakewood Black Caucus. My name is Shirley Nelson, and you want my address?
It's customary, but understanding if folks don't feel comfortable.
It's okay. 12900 Lake Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio, 44107, number 609. I'm speaking on behalf of Lakewood Black Caucus, and I want to start off to say thank you for the resolutions that have come forth. On September 21st, the caucus hosted a celebration of life for Patricia Welburn, for a life well served, and she was well enough to attend. Cindy Strabig was there, and she brought a resolution on behalf of Council Ward 3, and she presented her with a resolution. And it's an honor to be able to be here to speak to that and to say thank you, Cindy. I saw Patricia yesterday briefly. She was at home with her daughter watching the Browns game. Patricia has contributed to her community as a leader of the Lakewood Black Caucus since she founded it in 2021. She has provided educational opportunities, as you all have said, through programs that she has implemented while serving as a teacher of African American history. Patricia is a kind and fearless leader. In the words of late theologian Howard Thurman, to clothe one's life with simple deeds of kindness in the quietness of the human heart and in the workings of the human mind. She has responded to the ultimate call to serve while keeping alive a sensitivity to the movement of the Spirit of God. In Patricia's absence, the Lakewood Black Caucus will maintain its commitment to the community by offering educational programs, unity in community events, Black-centered holiday celebrations and entertainment, allyship programs that teach African American history, mutual aid support programs. In alignment with her mission, the Lakewood Black Caucus will help people navigate the challenges of racism and white supremacy, understanding that when Black people rise, so will the rest of humanity. Everything and everyone is connected. I leave you with a poem on behalf of Patricia titled When Great Souls Die, written by Maya Angelou. And it's an excerpt from Maya Angelou's poem, When Great Trees Fall. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration, our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Angelina Steiner.
Angelina Steiner, 2261 Northland. I'm not sure I can follow up Shirley with that. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different route and explain to everyone here and to the public and anyone watching a little bit of how I came to interact with Patricia. So I was introduced to her through a mutual friend. And this person said, "Hey, you gotta meet Patricia Wellborn. Do you know who she is?" And I said, "No." And they said, she runs the Lakewood Black Caucus. You got to meet her. I said, "Okay, I'll meet her." So they did an email introduction, and Patricia and I exchanged emails, and we finally got a time that we could get on the phone and talk. And I can't remember exactly what we talked about, but we talked for quite a minute. And we may have been plotting and planning some things, but we knew that we needed to work together, and we knew that we shared a vision of Lakewood. And Patricia's vision of Lakewood is one where we all are in community together. Patricia's vision of Lakewood is one where, we all help each other. And Patricia lived that every day of her life. And I just know that she's going to be leaving a pretty big void in this community and with the work that still needs to happen and to continue. to ensure that that vision that she saw, that we talked about, that we shared about, is realized. And I just want to challenge everyone in the administration and on council to not just have these words be words, you know, have that resolution of what you wrote and what you were signing off on, that you really, really take this moment and listen to what Shirley said, and listen, you know, to the words that Councilwoman Strabig has said, that you really put those words into action. That is my challenge to you, so that we can actually make sure that Patricia's legacy lives on through the actions that we take in Lakewood to make it a Lakewood that we all can be proud of, that we all have a place in, and that we all can succeed in. That's what Patricia was fighting for every single day. And she did that. And we had an ARTF meeting a couple weeks ago, and she was on that call with us. She was on that call. And so I just want everyone to know that Patricia is fighting and has been fighting for till her very last breath, and she will. And I just think that that is the standard that we need to live by. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other folks who want to speak on this topic, if you haven't signed in already? Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution in honor of Patricia Welburn. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. If you'd like to, we have a ceremonial copy of the resolution. If anyone who'd like to come down front, we'll present it to you.
Item 10, Resolution 2024-59, a resolution to join with states, municipalities, and other jurisdictions around the country to designate September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Lakewood, Ohio, by celebrating Hispanic culture and paying tribute to the contributions of Hispanic Americans.
I'll first move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. In discussion, I'll just say that I want to thank Deputy Clerk Curligio for bringing it to my attention that, to our knowledge, we could not find any record of the City of Lakewood having previously celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month, and we thought it was very important to do so, having some really notable members of our community who are of Hispanic descent, and that we want to make sure that we are celebrating. I'm going to ask Clerk Bach, if you don't mind again, reading the well-written resolution from Danielle.
Resolution 2024-59, a resolution to join with states, municipalities, and other jurisdictions around the country to designate September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Lakewood, Ohio, by celebrating Hispanic culture and paying tribute to the contributions of Hispanic Americans. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Week was signed into law in 1968 and expanded to Hispanic Heritage Month in 1988. And whereas the Hispanic presence in North America spans centuries, predating the founding of what is now recognized as the United States. And whereas, according to the 2020 U.S. Census, 1 in every 4 children in the United States is of Hispanic or Latino origin, and the total Hispanic Latino population in Ohio has more than doubled since 2000. And whereas Cuyahoga County has the largest Hispanic Latino population in the state, and whereas Hispanic and Latino communities have played a pivotal role in shaping the diversity and prosperity of Lakewood and the United States, contributing to fields such as the arts, music, literature, sports, business, and the culinary landscape. And whereas by recognizing and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, the City of Lakewood encourages and applauds our existing culture of opposing discrimination and welcoming diversity. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council does hereby declare September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in Lakewood, Ohio, and calls on all citizens to help recognize and pay tribute to the numerous contributions of Hispanics and Latinos in our community.
Thank you. Further discussion from colleagues? Councilmember Strubik.
Thank you. I'm happy to support this resolution, recognizing the importance of the Hispanic community and their culture in all of American life, as a part of American life, integrated through all of our arts, science, mathematics, and every other industry, and every other job, and every other part of our lives that they have affected. Thank you.
Other colleagues? Comments? Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. I appreciate the attention to this important celebration that if we have not celebrated this before, that's something we should have been doing, so I'm glad it's corrected. And to the Lakewood residents who are here tonight, thank you for connecting with City Council, and I hope that we'll have a chance to hear from you and celebrate you. Thank you.
Other comments from colleagues? All right. I know, I believe Ms. Rodriguez-Carbone, did you want to say a few words? So I'm going to call up Laura now, who is our other co-chair of the Anti-Racism Task Force and very valued member of the community.
Hi, apologies, I came in late and didn't sign in, but I just want to thank you for not only recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month, but earlier this year also recognizing Black History Month. And I think that for many communities, especially, and I can only speak from my own experience as a Latina, that we often feel kind of on the margins. We don't really feel included. So I think the journey toward, inclusion and diversity in any society has to have that first step of recognition. And so I thank and am deeply honored to lend my support to the resolution and really applaud you for thinking about folks in the community that may or may not necessarily know that this is going on, but that could lead to greater connections through outreach with them. So thank you very much, and I'm so happy that this is happening for not only my community, but for the whole of Lakewood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other folks who'd like to speak on this topic if you didn't have a chance to sign in? Yep, come on up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jesus Tavazon. I live at 1368 Westlake Avenue, and I'd like to thank you guys for creating this resolution. I think it's very important, not just because, as a community, the Hispanic community, we're increasing, our presence here in Lakewood. I think that being the densest population between New York City and Chicago, that we've never recognized Hispanic Heritage Month is, it's kind of befuddling, considering that, we have great Mexican food, great Puerto Rican food, great Colombian food here in the city of Lakewood. And, You know, I just want you to, I want to, you know, say what the gentlewoman said is like, we challenge you, you know, to please look around. You know, there's not a lot of diversity on this board, you know, and recognize that we're here. And, you know, we're not going anywhere. We love Lakewood, and we enjoy the city. And we just want to thank you for the resolution and to recognize that, you know, we're going to be here for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hispanic population has been in America before America was America, so we're not going anywhere. So thank you very much. All right. Any further comments? All right, hearing none on the motion to adopt. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And we do have a ceremonial copy of the resolution, so anyone who'd like to come down in front, and we'll be presenting it to Ms. Rodriguez-Carbon.
Beautiful, just beautiful. Thank you for bringing it. Love it. All right, without objection, we're going to move item 12 to the top.
Item 12, communication from Councilmember Bullock regarding the importance of the arts and of stable funding for arts and culture in Cuyahoga County.
Thank you, Madam President, for the courtesy of moving this up in sequence. We have a speaker here tonight I'm hoping will join us at the podium in a moment. Dear mayors and members of council, we recently expressed our support for the arts by adopting a resolution supporting issue 55, an initiative on the 2024 general election ballot to continue arts funding in Cuyahoga County through Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. Few leaders are better qualified to describe the valuable contribution of artists to our community than CAC Board of Trustees member Leonard DeCosimo. Mr. DeCosimo also serves as Executive Secretary of the North Shore AFL-CIO Federation of Labor and as a longtime president of the Cleveland Federation of Musicians, Local 4 AFM. Members of Local 4 have performed regularly in Lakewood at concerts that our residents enjoy in both public and private venues. Please join me in welcoming Mr. DeCosimo tonight as he expresses support for issue 55 and the renewal of consistent, robust funding for arts and culture and for the artists that enrich our community through their creative work. Sincerely. Move to receive and file.
Second. Second the motion to receive and file. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. And I'll invite Mr. DeCosimo. Sorry, you just said it like 3 times. Come on up, sir, and the microphone's on, so you can just state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Leonard DeCosimo. All of those titles, as Tom mentioned. I also want to point out that who's joining me on the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture Board this term, appointed by County Executive Ronayne, is a Lakewood resident, Gina Vernacey, who's a longtime CEO at Playhouse Square and someone I've worked with for decades negotiating contracts on behalf of artists. Thank you. Thank you for this time to be able to come speak about and promote Cuyahoga arts and culture. And yes, on issue 55 this fall. For almost 20 years, since 2007, this has been a tax on cigarette consumption. There's been over 4,000 grants that total just under $250 million to 485 nonprofit organizations here in Cuyahoga County to support arts and culture, more than music, more than cinema. It also introduces the beauty of nature and the earth sciences as well. It's that much money and that broad of a breadth of scope, what we consider arts and culture, what we consider getting excited about as a community, right, to propel us to do good works and good things. We've talked about all the different heritages, and here we mentioned Hispanic heritage as well. All of these things tie into that through funding nonprofit organizations, which are longtime standing partners in our communities. And I'd also like to point out that in all 59, it's unbelievable, 59 cities in Cuyahoga County, each one of them has been receiving dollars throughout this almost 20 years. We expected to raise $160 million over the next 10 years, and part of our goal here is to try to figure out how to judiciously take care of that for the next decade. We take it very seriously to be custodians of these tax dollars and want to be able to spread it equally among all of the disciplines that we're charged to take care of. With all these positions that I'm humbly and honored to be in, and I speak regionally and across the nation, this is the envy of our colleagues when I speak about public funding for the arts like this. And so I feel in a way I'm preaching to the choir, as they say, but I really thank you again for the time and for the resolution, and thank you.
Thank you. So let's see, we have a motion to receive and file the communication. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 1, report from Committee of the Whole held September 23rd, 2024.
Dear colleagues, Committee of the Whole met September 23rd, 2024 for an update from the Planning Department on the proposed downtown development project on Detroit Avenue between Marlowe Avenue and Bell Avenue. Assistant Planning Director David Boss provided the committee a thorough update on the plan and how it meets the city's development priorities and council's priorities. He shared the most recent design renderings from Casto, as well as a draft outline of what council can expect in the forthcoming development agreement. After the presentation, council had the opportunity to ask questions and share feedback on topics such as parking, traffic circulation, the project's public spaces, and neighborhood engagement. Outstanding questions involving the project's financials will be discussed at a follow-up Committee of the Whole meeting in October. On or about November 8th, the administration will provide a package of materials to council, including 1, a plan developed by the Planning Commission and ABR, 2, a final plat signed and reviewed by engineering, and 3, a draft development agreement. Under Section 1156, Plan Development of the Code, council must act within 45 days of receipt of this information. Right now, that has council scheduled to vote on the development at its January 6th regular meeting. I would like to thank the Planning Department for their thoughtful and steadfast leadership on this project. It has been a long road, and while the finish line looks promising, there are many decisions to be made to ensure the downtown development project will serve the needs of Lakewood residents for the long term. I'll move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 2, report from Committee of the Whole held today, October 7th, 2024.
Colleagues, Committee of the Whole met tonight. We had one item on the docket besides minute, which was Resolution 2024-55. We entered executive session, and upon exiting, unanimously voted to refer the resolution back to full council favorably. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that
Item 3, Resolution 2024-55, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor or director of law to enter into an agreement with a former employee to pay $17,000 in settlement of pending Bureau of Workers' compensation claims.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 4, report from Housing Planning and Development Committee held September 30th, 2024.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you, colleagues. The Housing Planning and Development Committee met on September 30th, 2024, last Monday, to discuss, I call it more of a working session, to discuss Complete Streets Ordinance. There were 2 docket items, Ordinance 11-2024 and Resolution 2024-42. We had 2 guests from the City of Cleveland, Phil Kidd, the Complete and Green Streets Trail Manager for City of Cleveland, and then Jacob Van Sickle, who is the Executive Director of Bike Cleveland and a member of the Cleveland Transportation Investment Advisory Committee. Both Jacob and Phil gave a really good description of Cleveland's process from a resolution back in 2011 through an ordinance that they recently passed, and how they are seeking to accomplish their goals of making Cleveland have more complete and green streets. And the administration and council both were able to ask questions and develop an understanding of Cleveland's process to help inform our process that we are collaboratively working with the administration to come about. It was a productive meeting, and I look forward to working with the administration in October to hopefully come back to something with council that we can all agree with. So that's the report. Thank you.
Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 5, report from Public Safety Committee held today, October 7th, 2024.
Councilmember Steuben. Thank you. We met this evening and talked with members from LSWAB and representatives from CLAWS and our neighbors to the Cleveland area that are working on the TNR program across the region to trap, neuter, and return cats to the environment. Learned a lot tonight about vacuums, had never heard that before, and about how to humanely treat the cats in our community. We also heard from Mr. Gary Crumley from the animal shelter and how this program has been going there as an initial trial, and also how it could be bigger and better in the future. We were able to ask them a lot of questions, as well as their attorney, Dana Marie Piniella. We made a resolution to have the law department look at their recommendations a little bit further and come up with some type of an ordinance that we could review at a later date. Thank you.
Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, substitute ordinance 16, 2024. An ordinance to take effect immediately to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances and to provide for the publication of such new matter.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. This is just our quarterly codification ordinance. No further discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, Resolution 2024-58, a resolution to recognize and celebrate the distinguished career of Fire Chief Tim Dunphy on the occasion of his retirement after 32 years of service and leadership with Lakewood Fire Department.
So first I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Since Chief Dunphy's retirement kind of snuck up on us, we all made our farewell comments to him at the last meeting and got to see him yesterday at the fantastic fire ceremony. And thank you, new Chief Fairbanks, and welcome, new Chief Fairbanks, to your first council meeting as the new chief. It was a great ceremony. You know, I won't belabor the point, but you know, we all recognize the contributions of former Chief Dunphy and wish him well in his retirement. Any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion to adopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 11, report from Vice President Baker regarding September 18th Lakewood Alive Board of Directors meeting.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Lakewood Alive Board of Directors met on September 18th at the Lakewood Public Library for its bi-monthly meeting. As City Council's ex officio member of Lakewood Alive's Board of Directors, I attend the meetings and wish to report back to City Council after each meeting. The meeting kicked off with a group discussion led by the DEI Committee about the legacy of redlining and other discriminatory housing policies in the Cleveland area and beyond. The DEI Committee tied the discussion back to Lakewood Alive and its mission to bring housing resources to underserved members of the community. The Housing Committee Chair described many instances of active and ongoing coordination between Lakewood Alive and City Hall regarding bed bugs, referrals, outreach, and more. The Chair also highlighted the many services provided to residents, such as the paint from the paint program, tools from the toolbox rental program, and 8 yard cleanup projects completed since July. Planning is also underway for projects related to leaf raking and snow shoveling later this season. And to fund these initiatives and others, we heard from the Development Chair about this year's fundraising goals and strategies. In fiscal year 2024, Lakewood Alive welcomed 47 new donors and is strategizing ways to keep them engaged and active contributors for the long term. It was also announced that the organization will receive a grant from the Healthy Lakewood Foundation of $50,000 over 2 years and $5,000 grant from First Energy. Finally, it was announced that Executive Director Ian Andrews would be recognized with the CDC Staff Member of the Year Award at the Ohio CDC conference held at the end of September. For those of you who know and work with Ian, we know just how deserving he is of this recognition. Congratulations, Ian. Council members looking to get more involved with and support Lakewood Alive can attend an upcoming Dine to Donate event, the annual Loving Lakewood event, or talk with me about joining a committee or participating in a volunteer project to help a homeowner. For a full list of Lakewood Alive's upcoming events, please subscribe to their weekly newsletter. And I'll note that Ian Andrews says he always likes to come when anything Lakewood Alive related is on the docket. But in this instance, we're trying to make this a more normal thing where every time there's a board meeting, we just report back to let the rest of council know, and that he doesn't need to attend every time we do that. So. And I'll make a motion to receive and file that communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Thank you, Vice President Baker, for that report. It is very helpful. We have so many different groups and activities. We have a very engaged community, and for all of us to be at everything all the time is challenging, so it's very helpful to get these formal reports so we can stay in the loop more. That newsletter is excellent, though, so that is a great way to keep up with Lakewood Alive. And I'll notice that Ian happens to miss the one where we mentioned any sort of honor of him, so, but, and well-deserved on his part. Any further discussion on this communication? Hearing none, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 13, communication from Law Director Vargo regarding ODOT excess land transfer.
Director Vargo.
Thank you, dear President Keppel and members of City Council. Attached, please find 2 ordinances which, if adopted, will vacate a small portion of Niagara Drive from the public right-of-way and dedicate a small portion of Glenbury Avenue as a public right-of-way. The legislation is necessary because the city long ago ceased to use the Niagara Drive parcel as a public street, and at some time began use of the Glenbury Avenue parcel as a public street. Over the past months, the city has worked closely with the Ohio Department of Transportation to effect the transfer to the city of small parcels of property along North Marginal and Interstate 90. A recent survey of the property revealed that a small portion of Niagara Drive was never formally vacated as a public right-of-way during the construction of Interstate 90, despite the fact that it has no longer been used as a public street since the construction. At some time since the construction of Interstate 90, moreover, the city did begin use of the Glenbury Drive parcel as a public street without its formal dedication as such. The ordinances are important to facilitate ODOT's transfer of the parcels to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Vargo, is there a timeline on this?
I don't believe there's an urgency to this. Okay. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to move to refer to Housing Planning and Development and Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the administration. This is one thing we worked on with some of the ARPA funds, was to survey all the properties along I-90 that ODOT currently still owns. So this was a byproduct of that. So just like to thank Public Works for shepherding that, and hopefully it, will continue along the process and actually own this property, so then we can manage it. We already pay to maintain it, so we might as well have all the rights of ownership. So thanks.
Thank you. All right. On the motion to refer, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 14, ordinance 17, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately vacating a portion of Niagara Drive as public right-of-way.
Move to refer to Housing Planning Development and Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 15, ordinance 18, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately dedicating a portion of Glenberry Avenue as public right-of-way.
Move to refer to Housing Planning Development and Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 16, communication from Law Director Vargo regarding traffic code update.
Director Vargo again.
Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, as you are aware, the speed limit on Lake Avenue has been reduced from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour. Since the change in speed limit, Lakewood Police have issued citations for speeding violations on Lake Avenue under the Ohio Revised Code. The attached legislation, if adopted, will allow officers to issue these citations under either the Lakewood Codified Ordinances or the Ohio Revised Code. Thank you.
Thank you. A move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Councilman Striebeck.
Thank you. Director Vargo, can you just explain a little bit what that difference makes in the enforcement?
Yes, thank you, Councilperson Striebeck. The city always has the option of citing a moving violation under the Ohio Revised Code, but if we have an ordinance that also incorporates the speeding restriction in our own ordinances, it allows the officer to cite it under our ordinance and retain certain of the funds that constitute the fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still on the communication. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to receive and file, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 17, ordinance 19, 2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately amending section 3303, maximum speed limits, assured clear distance ahead of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to reflect the recently reduced speed limit on Lake Avenue.
I'll move to refer to public safety.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President.
Yep, Councilman Bullock.
So thank you for this proposal by the administration. I'm glad to hear it. I'd love to hear from the police chief about our policies. If you have this authority, do we prefer in general to use the Lakewood Codified Ordinances authority? And secondly, do we see more opportunities to lower the speed limit? This was a major discussion point for several years. I'm glad to see it at least come down 5 miles an hour. But this is something that I think should be thinking about on an ongoing basis. Would welcome your comments.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. Yes, the police department fully supports this ordinance. Like Director Vargo said, it helps us maintain the funds from the fines here. The second question is right now, as you know, reducing a speed limit takes a ton of work. ODOT, this was their recommendation. The average speed, I believe, from the recorder actually is down to 29 miles an hour on Lake Avenue, which is great. So to be honest, we have not seen a lot of violators, which is a good thing. There's several things. With the bike lane, lowering each one lane really has slowed down Lake Avenue.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to refer to public safety, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 18, communication from Chief Dunphy regarding Fire Prevention Week 2024.
Assuming Chief Fairbanks.
Oh, I've got a lot of practice with that. Dear members of council, attached, please find a resolution for your consideration proclaiming October 6th through October 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Week. This year's theme is Smoke Alarms Make Them Work for You. In cooperation with the National Fire Protection Association, we will work to educate everyone about simple but important actions they can take to keep themselves and those around them safe. Lakewood firefighters will be visiting each elementary school to interact with and educate children from kindergarten to 5th grade. The Lakewood Fire Department will also be making several social media posts throughout Fire Prevention Week in an effort to reach as many citizens as possible. Fire Prevention Week provides the Lakewood Fire Department with the opportunity to educate all the citizens of Lakewood in fire and life safety. In addition, raising community awareness in fire and life safety can result in the reduction of our community's risk, thusly saving lives and preventing injuries. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. This is always a great week and appreciate the work to educate our kids and our community. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 19, Resolution 2024-60, a resolution to take effect immediately declaring October 6, 2024 through October 12, 2024 Fire Prevention Week 2024.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 20, September Finance Department reports submitted pursuant to Lakewood Codified Ordinances 11103.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Yep, Councilman Bullock.
I noticed that on this report, there's a lot of, in the description field, there's a fair number that aren't very descriptive. Non-competitive items appears multiple times, blanket purchase order, miscellaneous services, consulting services. I think the spirit of this report is that we would have some descriptive detail. And I don't know that this report does as good of a job as we're hoping in that regard. So I'm not sure whether to ask for referral to the Finance Committee for further discussion or to have a colloquy on the floor right now. I understand that this is a summary chart here as opposed to an exhaustive, multi-page report, that is dozens of pages in length. Some of these descriptions are quite helpful, such as library story walk. We know what that is. We know what automotive gas is. We've got another $31,000 of gas we're purchasing, but others are not. So, we talked at one point earlier in the year about referring this to a committee for discussion. At the time, council declined. Perhaps this would be worth referring to committee so that we could talk a little bit about getting more detail on these reports.
Councilman Bacon.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Councilman Bullock, and you want to have enough information for it to be useful, but not so much that it's overwhelming. And what I would suggest is working with the Finance Department. The way the ordinance reads, and Director Vargo, correct me if I'm wrong, it's that there's a sample report that's on file with the clerk that kind of that all reports that come to council will follow kind of the sample. So if we want to update it, I certainly encourage you to work with Director Mahoney. I'd be happy to help and see what I think part of it is what their software can pump out in a way that's not overly labor intensive for the Finance Department. I don't want to speak for them, so I'd welcome you to talk about it as well. But I think there are ways in which we can maybe tweak it, and so I'd be willing to help you with that and help you with the Finance Department and get there.
Director Mahoney.
Yes, this is a function of our finance system. We could probably add a little more description to the description in entering the finance. I'll work with my staff on that.
Madam President, appreciate the discussion. It's a good point. Maybe there's a comments field for some of these that could also be included. But if we can have an informal agreement tonight that will communicate between now and whenever the next one of these reports may appear, I certainly would welcome that.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good. So I'm not adverse to at some point sending it to finance if we need to, but we also do have budget season coming up, and so I want to be cognizant of how much time we're spending in committee meetings. So if that can happen in conversation and then come back to us, that would be great. All right, so on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 21, Fancy Pie Bar LLC, liquor notice at 17,001 Madison Avenue.
So I believe we are in receipt of the report. Yes, we are. There it is. Thank you. Vice President Baker.
I see no statutory reason to object.
All right, I will move to file without objection.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes. Did we get everybody? Did we say? Okay, I didn't hear everybody's voice. Okay, so we're at public comment. Do we have? Thank you. Okay, so we are at public comment. And when I call your name, you can come up to the microphone. It looks like it's already on, so you don't need to push anything. State your name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. Please address the chair and keep your remarks courteous. All right, I do not see, I think Mary and Kara, that was from committee. So we'll go to, no? All right, Dennis Pahotsky. Welcome back.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Pahotsky. I'm at 1430 Park Haven Row in Lakewood here. Please understand that I have been elected as the block captain, lucky me. And what I have to say here isn't all mine. I report a lot of things that people are telling me or calling me about. Some of this stuff is mine. I'll make no mistake about that. We never got an answer about the combination left turn sign and stop sign being on Getco property. Why isn't it moved to the city property where tickets can be issued and possible fines levied? People are still cutting through from Bunce coming over to Park Haven Road to hurry up and get into Raising Cane. And to our knowledge, no tickets have been issued in that regard. We've had dumpsters recently emptied at Raising Cane at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that was on a Saturday. And I contacted Rumpke in Cincinnati about these curfew hours here, and she told me that someone from the city called her and told her that, and her name was Crystal, that curfew is at 7 a.m. on Saturday, which makes no sense whatsoever. Monday through Friday, it's 8. People get up and go to work. They want to sleep on a Saturday and Sunday and national holiday, so that didn't make any sense. I'll go as quickly as I can here. During the big storm we had, Raising Cane leased a huge generator that was quite loud, keeping residents awake. I got calls on that one. And when I spoke with the officer on duty at the time, I was told this is a community problem. I said, no, it's not. It's a Raising Cane's problem. They're $1 billion company. And each and every one of us had our own problems with that storm, as you very well know. Power was out for several days, and a lot of us lost a lot of food. And what the residents don't understand is why they were allowed to get away with that, keeping people awake just so they can keep going in business. GFS trucks are unloading again at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning, again violating curfew. And in the past, some officers have told me that's okay, they can do that. We obviously don't agree to that one. The parking lot lights are on in Raising Cane, and this is my problem, all night long. They're not shut off at all until daylight comes. And it shines right into our home. And there's no reason why they can't shut these down at 12 midnight. Everybody's out of there by 11:30. Sometimes when the employees leave, they get in their cars, they rev the engines, they blare their radios, and they screech out of the parking lot. That's another problem that was called in to me, unfortunately. Here's another one that's my problem. We have a fence, and there's 6 feet between us and the wall that Raising Cane's owns. We had Christmas lights on our fence about 8 inches above the ground, and they called gardeners in to mow the lawn between the wall and the fence. And when they did this, they took weed whackers and sliced up all of our lights. $70 worth of damage. Just wondered who's going to pay for that. One of the former councilmen at large was working on our behalf, contacted Raising Cane's. They never called them back. I'm on a retiree pension, and things are tough, especially in this day and age. I didn't need that extra expense. In the past, we brought up this thing about Raising Cane's in the back driveway and the sign, and I was told this isn't the place to talk about it. Well, if this isn't, I want to know what is. I'd like to know what is. And I thought council people were supposed to represent everybody and not just big business. And on our street, we feel that big business is taking precedence over all the residents. And we can't help but feel that. It's been going on for 3 years. To that, I say thank you. God bless America. God help Lakewood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ellen Snyder.
Ellen Snyder, 1061 Rosalie Avenue. I'm in Ward 2. Thank you, Brian. Nice to meet you. Since July, I've been talking through email correspondence with Tom Bullock, Jason Schochner, prior to you coming, more recently with Cindy Marks, and most recently with Chris Gordon. So back in June, we had a silent leak in a toilet in the basement that went undetected, and we have a typical usage of 3.5 CCF is the measurement. It was 25, and we had a bill for $481. This was the second time in the last 9 months that we've had a silent leak in a toilet. The previous year in August, we had a silent leak, and it resulted in a usage of like 4 times what our typical usage is. So just in a matter of 9 months, we had really excessive water bills. And out of concern for that, I contacted the water department just to find out, is there a solution for a resident to avoid being hit by usage like this? And I was told that they tried to notify people to let them know that there is a leak. We were notified, but we weren't notified until in June. The usage was so excessive and the bill so big that, to me, that's just not an effective way to stop this. I was also told by the water department that I could look into a device called Flume, which would be a personal device that you could attach to the water meter to detect if there is a leak going on, and detect it faster than what the city can detect it at. And so when I looked online to see what the cost of this device was, it was $250 for just one single resident. And then I also discovered that obviously this is a common problem, common enough that an entire market has grown up around it. So there were all kinds of devices that someone could buy for personal use, and they ranged from $30 up to $550, $700. So I started to research this a little bit more, and I was finding out that there are cities that have put into work programs for all of the residents at a much more cost-effective approach. And then later I found out that we've already started to put in the infrastructure with our digital meters that we have now. So through that Neptune meter, there is a consumer portal that we could add on to that Neptune meter, and we're already paying a subscription. The city is already paying a subscription, so this would be an additional add-on to that current subscription. And the amount that I thought it was is even less than what I had mentioned to you in that one email. So instead of a device for a single person at $250, and if we have 15,000 water services in our city, and let's say 12,000 of them are within a home or a double, times $250, that would be millions for people to have this. If we opted to go with the consumer portal, with the infrastructure that we already have in place through Neptune, and it's called Neptune My 360, it would be $1 a year per household in the city. And the subscription is already being paid for by the city. We already kind of have taken that step in the right direction, and it just seems like it would be the right thing to do. Most importantly, I think that, initially it started from a personal level and being hit 2 times in the last 9 months with these huge bills. But the more I looked into it and realized how common it was, it's such a simple use of smart technology for a green initiative that the city could opt to do right now. And I'm hearing budget meetings. And so I guess I'm encouraging, advocating that we opt to start this Neptune My 360 and add the consumer portal to something that we already have and do it sooner rather than later. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that information and for being here tonight. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Announcements from colleagues? Announcements from the administration? Yep. Chief Fisher.
Just real quick, thank you earlier for reaching out. Much appreciated.
We certainly appreciate you and our safety forces for handling that, so thank you. Okay, I do have a couple announcements. First up is the Family Room here in Lakewood is celebrating 30 years of serving Lakewood's families with the Timeless Tales event on October 19th at 7 p.m. If you haven't already, the money from that will go to continue to support that family room activities, which I think a lot of folks, including some up here, have found very useful to themselves when they have a young family in particular. Also, you may have noticed the flowers on the dais. That is for our council clerk, Maureen Bach, recently completed her certified municipal clerk designation with the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. This is a very prestigious accomplishment. Very few clerks actually achieve that level of professional development, and we really appreciate the time that Clerk Bach is putting in to continue to educate herself and serve all of us and all of the community with the utmost professionalism. So congratulations, Clerk Bach. All right, now that I've embarrassed her, any other announcements? All right, we We have no further business to become before council. We're adjourned.